everybody. It's 8 a.m. I'll call the Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District Commission meeting to order. Welcome to all of our guests. Cassie, would you like to go through the virtual meeting guidance?
Good morning, Commissioners, members of the public, and staff. To help us have a smooth meeting, I'm going to review just a few decorum rules for all. While the Commission and staff are in person, we are still offering a Zoom option so members of the public can attend. If you are attending virtually and would like to speak, you can do so during appearances by the public. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and streamed live on YouTube, and the public chat has been disabled, but you can still send messages to the host if need be. Finally, Commissioners, please use your microphones while speaking and make sure your voice is directed towards the mic. When you're not speaking, please ensure your mic is off so others can utilize the mics. As a reminder, only 3 of the table mics can be live at a time. Also, please state your name before speaking for those who may be joining us via Zoom. Those are the decorum rules of the District Commission. Thank you for following them, and let's have a great meeting.
Okay, thank you. So we have Commissioner Murphy. Is Commissioner Rummel joined? No, not yet. Okay. So if Commissioner Murphy, virtual Commissioner Rummel has not yet appeared, and everybody else is in the room now. Okay. Let's see. That takes us to announcements. Eric?
Yeah, thank you. Eric Dundee, Executive Director. Just wanted to say thank you to the commissioners in the room and then also customer communities and staff who participated in our roles and expectations workshop last week. I think that was very well received. And for those who want to make comments, feel free, but I just wanted to give a thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eric. It was a good workshop, I thought, and like there may be something coming in the future too. Do you have any idea when we'll get the roles and the printout of the? Working on no time frame. Okay. Okay. So that takes us to the consent calendar. We have a number of items: the meeting minutes of 2/27, cash statement capital, expedited boundary annexation in Cottage Grove, expedited boundary annexations in Middleton. There's several sanitary sewer extension plans. I'm not going to go through those. A review of proposals, award of contracts for Dunn 2 replacement pump purchase. We do that for Dunn, and then they reimburse the district. Review of bids and award of contract 2025 digester cleaning. Review of bids and award for the Lower Badger Mill Creek Interceptor Phase 6, and approve transaction amount professional service agreement for Lower Badger Mill Creek Phase. Any questions on anything before we get a motion? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
This is Commissioner Meyer. I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
Motion by Commissioner Meyer, second by?
This is Commissioner Freeze. I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Freeze. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, motion carries. Okay. That takes us to the first topic, which is a public hearing for petition boundary annexation 2025-02 Kennedy Park Drive Parcels, Town of Westport. I believe, Bill, you're going to lead it off.
This is Bill Walker, Deputy Executive Director. I get to do the very small but very important task of opening this hearing and turning everything over to Kurt Sauser, who's going to run through the materials, and then we'll hear from Bob Anderson.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Kurt Sauser, Engineering Technician, and I'm here to present testimony on the annexation here in the town of Westport. So I have a number of exhibits that I'm going to present in support of this this annexation. Go through those with you right now. Exhibit 1 that I'm holding is an affidavit of publication confirming that the subject petition request was published in the Wisconsin State Journal on February 24th and March 3rd, 2025. This confirms that the statutory requirements for the Class 2 notice have been met. Exhibit 2, thank you, Amanda. Exhibit 2 is Certificate of the Administrative Assistant of the Districts dated February 24th, 2025 of the mailing notice, the list of all persons to whom the notice was sent as required by law. Exhibit 3 is the annexation petition from the town of Westport dated February 3rd, 2025. Petition seeks to add several residential and undeveloped agricultural parcels totaling approximately 53.61 acres to the district's service area. Exhibit 4 is a letter from CARPC to MMSD dated February 9th, 2025. The letter indicates that the lands described in the annexation petition were made part of the Central Urban Service Area through amendments approved by the Wisconsin DNR in 1996 and 2025. And that this annexation to the MMSD service area would be consistent with the adopted regional plans, assuming that the conditions of the DNR approval will be met as part of the proposed development and sewer extension review process. Exhibit 5, the map of the petition area that was prepared by MMSD. Exhibit 5 didn't make it in there? Well, I'm holding it. Okay. The area shaded red shows the annexation request from the town of Westport, approximately 53.61 acres in size. The existing MMSD service area is shown by the green shading. Municipal boundaries delineating the village of Wanakee and the town of Westport are shown by a black dashed line. Central Urban Service Area is depicted by the blue cross hatching. Vacant town of Westport lands lying adjacent to the proposed annexation to the north, east, and west are generally rural agricultural parcels and do not seek to connect to the public sanitary sewer system at this time. Exhibit 6 is a document titled MMSD Guidelines for Orderly and Efficient Addition of Territory to the District, adopted by the Commission on May 11, 2001. The proposed annexation is generally consistent with these criteria. Exhibit 7 is an excerpt from the District Sewer Use Ordinance, specifically Section 3.4.1 on costs related to annexation charges. The 2025 fee for petition annexation requiring a public hearing is $3,725. It is appropriate that the petitioner pay the annexation charges related to these proceedings. Exhibit 8 is a document titled MMSD Regulations, District Connection Charges, Conveyance Facility Connection Charges, and Treatment Plant Connection Charges. The approval of annexation should be conditioned upon following these regulations. Exhibit 9 is a table of current MMSD connection charge rates. Specifically, I refer to line item 23 that represents the Northeast Interceptor Wanakee to Forest Extension Basin, which relates to this annexation. Exhibit 10 is the Wisconsin Statutes Chapters 200.01 through 200.15, published and certified on March 7th, 2025, which relate to these proceedings. And Exhibit 11 is Commission Resolution 2024-0808-R4, which authorized an agreement with the town of Westport for the conveyance of sanitary sewer facilities. Facilities described in the agreement are being constructed with the district's current Northeast Interceptor Wanakee Extension Capacity Improvements construction project and relate to these proceedings. Based on my technical review of the application and documents provided to me, it is my opinion that the annexation is consistent with the requirements of Wisconsin Statute 200.15 sub 2, in particular, that the annexation will promote sewerage management policies and operation and will be consistent with the adopted plans of municipal, regional, and state agencies, and that the annexation will promote public health and welfare and will affect efficiency and economy in sewerage management based on generally accepted engineering standards regarding pollution prevention. That is all I have. for this, topic.
Thank you, Kurt. Bob Anderson, welcome. Could you say a few words on this annexation for us?
Certainly. Good morning. My name is Bob Anderson. I am the utility manager for the town of Westport. I did write the annexation petition. I have been trying to figure out how to get sewer services to those 3 buildings for about 30 years. It was fortunate that your Interceptor construction going on right now facilitated that for them, because they've been asking me to get this for off and on for all 30 years. So we are definitely just trying to make this move forward. And I do have the project for that sewer extension of ours to tie into your line out for bid. We hope to be in construction in April, assuming everything gets approved.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Mr. Anderson. Paul Kent, District Counsel, any questions?
Just one question, Mr. Anderson, just so that our record is complete. I appreciate your summary of this, but I take it that the town supports the annexation and would like this to be approved.
Yes, absolutely. We are in support of this petition, and we would appreciate it very much so if it does get approved.
Thank you.
Are there any members of the public who want to speak on this annexation? Hearing none, that brings us to the end, and I get to close this hearing. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, that leads us to discussion and approval of the petition boundary annexation for Kennedy Drive parcels. Anybody have any? Had the time for questions. Anybody have any comments or discussion? Or any questions? Okay. Seeing none, we don't need a roll call in this. No. Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the petition boundary annexation agreement? Let's see. I'm getting to the resolution 2025-03-13R17.
Hi, Tom. Commissioner Clark, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Clark. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Bookland, I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Bookland. Okay. Any further discussion? We have a motion by Commissioner Clark, second by Commissioner Bookland. Anybody online have their hands up? Okay. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Done. Okay. That will take us to item C, review of proposals and award a contract for bond counsel services.
Good morning. Ben Neerad, District Budget Officer, here today to present on review of proposals and award of contract for bond counsel services. As I get started, I'll mention bond counsel services are not new to the district. This is a service that we have procured for in the past. It's here today in front of the commission for a couple of reasons. One, because the costs under this contract may exceed the $50,000 threshold that requires commission approval. And two, kind of a overall context point, as we continue along our journey of utilizing general obligation bonds, more or less for the first time in recent history, we're trying to bring the commission along and provide updates. And so this is serving kind of that dual purpose today. So ultimately, the action that I am requesting is adoption of the resolution stated on this slide, awarding a contract for bond counsel services to Foley and Lardner for $50,000.
So just a little bit of background to add on what I just mentioned. So as I think folks around the table know, the district finances most capital projects using debt. And historically, we've used Clean Water Fund loans through the state's program more or less exclusively. Due to limited capacity in that program, we plan to also utilize general obligation bonds as we go forward. To execute either a Clean Water Fund loan or a general obligation bond, bond counsel is required. Even with the Clean Water Fund loan program, might think, oh, it's a loan, why do you need bond counsel? We are, in effect, essentially offering a bond, as I understand it, to the DNR, and that's kind of part of the loan agreement. So the bond counsel services that we are procuring for include rendering of legal opinions regarding the issuance of municipal obligations, reviewing our official statement. So this official statement will be new for us as a district and is required as part of the general obligation bond offering process. And bond counsel will prepare resolutions to authorize borrowing. So those will be kind of the primary things that you all as commissioners will see as we move forward with borrowing. You'll see those for approval. And then post-issuance compliance support. So as we move towards using general obligation bonds, we're going to have some additional compliance work that we need to perform. And so bond counsel will help support us in that, will help provide model policies to better ensure that we are in full compliance. So why are we procuring now? So historically, we've procured for bond counsel on a per loan basis. So we'd be, executing an individual loan with the DNR, procure for bond counsel, and then we do it all over again, kind of the next time. Moving forward, we want to use a multi-year contract that reduces administrative burden and also increases the number of law firms bidding. And indeed, we saw that with this procurement where historically we've gotten one firm. In this case, we had 3 firms bidding. So I think, all else equal, the more bidders that we have on our RFPs, better from a competition perspective. I'll note, payment to bond counsel only occurs at the time of a loan or bond offering. So I'm here today with the $50,000, but that $50,000 will only come to fruition if we actually execute the 2 Clean Water Fund loans and the 1 general obligation bond that constitutes that $50,000. So my guess is that it will ultimately be less than that for 2025, but from kind of a conservative perspective, we wanted to kind of move forward with what we thought the top of that cost might be under this contract for this year. And, importantly, under this procurement, bond counsel is going to be helping us, with both Clean Water Fund loans and general obligation bonds. So we'll have 1 firm, 1 lead attorney doing both of that work. And then, under this multi-year contract, obviously you've got better assurance of continuity of services too, which is to our benefit. So under the RFP that we released, 3 law firms responded: Kutak Rock, Quarles, and Foley and Lardner. You can see what our assessment was for judging those responses: qualifications and experience, costs and insurance, client training and post-issuance compliance support, especially as we kind of move into, for us, this uncharted territory of general obligation bonds. That training aspect and compliance support aspect was very important, and then quality of references. So, I think our assessment, we had an internal staff panel judging these responses. All firms had strong responses. Foley's was graded highest by that staff panel. They've got extensive experience in Wisconsin, specifically with both general obligation bonds and Clean Water Fund loans. They had the lowest price for Clean Water Fund loan services, right? So insofar as that's our most common, debt tool, that was certainly attractive. And they had strong and relevant references. So they provide services to the state of Wisconsin. So the Department of Administration, which kind of operates the Clean Water Fund loan program and the Environmental Improvement Fund, they are bond counsel there, so they understand the program. they work directly with Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District, so obviously a similar organization, and then also work with Madison Water Utility. And so spoke with staff at all three of those organizations and heard very positive things about Foley's work, doing bond counsel work. So Dana Locke is the primary attorney under this proposal. You can see she's got extensive experience, just over these last 3 years, more than $2 billion in principal of tax-exempt borrowings, which, is what we would be offering. Dana's based in Milwaukee, and then, in addition to her, there's, more supporting attorneys and paralegals that kind of come as part of the package for services. So that's what I've got. Happy to take any questions that you might have, but in terms of the requested action, again, it's awarding a 3-year contract with 2 optional 1-year extensions, authorizing capital budget transaction authority of $50,000. You can see how that was calculated here. And then one thing to note, we expect, as we've done historically, we expect to wrap those bond counsel costs into the bond or loan principal following past practice. I think that's generally kind of the industry standard practice for those costs. So again, happy to take any questions that you might have. Otherwise, the requested action is to adopt the resolution that's before you.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Anybody have any questions? Dan?
And Paul, part of full disclosure, my son works for Foley and Lardner, attorney out of the Dallas office, does practice in that area. So there's no conflict between, there's conflict between me. Nothing to do with this.
Okay, anyone else? Greg?
Yeah, just one, this is either for Paul or Ben. I think I heard on one of the updates that in the proposed governor's budget, right, he cranked up the Clean Water Fund. So you can move that money around any way you want if it turns out that the Clean Water Fund is available again.
Right, yeah, so if we pursue fewer general obligation bonds because of that increased capacity that's, to your point, been proposed by the governor, yeah, we've got basically the $50,000 in authority that you'd be granting today, and then we could, use that for either Clean Water Fund loans or general obligation bonds.
Okay, anyone else?
I'll just note on Greg's question, the resolution says up to 2 Clean Water Fund loans and 1 GO bond offering. So it's a little bit hems you into some numbers, but not probably too bad where that would be a problem if things change in the next 2 years. Or is that a problem, Bill? Your face says you're thinking.
All right, Bill Walker, tiny bit of inside baseball here. Nobody listen. The resolution written with those numbers explaining how the total was arrived at, or setting those as individual limits? Question, obviously, neither one of us had considered before right now, but we should make sure we get it right.
In the now therefore clauses, number 2. Here.
But it does specify that. I mean, I think worst case, we can come back to the commission.
It'll be fine for now.
And we'll have to come back for execution of those loans or bonds anyway, and so if we need additional
we could make a change
authority,
at that time.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, what if excuse me, if you're moving from 2 to 3 Clean Water Fund loans, cost probably decreases.
Correct.
And so you're then under the $50,000 amount. So
right, and just one last point here. The ultimate reason we are coming today is so everyone is aware we are embarking on this path. We don't actually need expenditure authority today, to Ben's point. We won't be spending this money until such time as we do this closing. So, clarifying the specific dollar amounts is something we can do when the time comes, but we do want to make sure everyone knows that this is happening.
it does say cover anticipated bond counsel expenses for up to 2 Clean Water Fund loans and 1 general obligation and bond offering. So it's got the word anticipated. So we could argue that, Lisa. Okay. Anybody else? Patrick, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Commissioner Lytle. I was just curious, there's a minimum for general obligation, services of $30,000. That implies that we would want to go to market with a minimum of $30 million to, maximize that. Is that kind of the way we approach this?
Yeah, I mean, the closer we can get to that, the better. You know, I would anticipate when we do general obligation bond offerings, whenever possible, we'll have multiple projects as part of that. Whether we always hit that $30 million threshold or not, you know, I don't know. We'll have to see. But yeah, you're right. To the degree that there's that minimum threshold, the closer we can get to that or be above that, the better it is for us from a cost efficiency perspective.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Brad, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. I'd be happy to make a motion to approve the resolution with one change to number 2 in the resolve clause, if everyone is comfortable with it, to basically read after bond council expenses for clean water fund and general obligation bond offerings.
Oh, good idea. Get rid of the up to 2. Yeah. Good idea. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Murphy to approve an amended resolution removing up to 2 out of point number 2 in the now therefore clauses. Do we have a second?
And the 1.
I just second that.
Second by Commissioner Meyer.
With the amendment, I like that change.
And then and removing and 1, right? Okay, so remove up to 2 and then after loans and 1. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Murphy to approve an amended resolution, second by Commissioner Meyer. Any further discussion or comments? So I've got one. Do bond councils get involved in all of the Build America, Buy America stuff too? So they have to evaluate every project, or is that done at an earlier level?
So in terms of evaluating kind of the compliance of that project, so I don't believe they would be engaging on that level of detail on a project. When we pursue clean water fund loans, which would be then subject to those Build American, Buy American provisions, we are essentially working with our consulting engineers under the design and bidding process to ensure compliance. That's essentially our compliance strategy. So it's really more on the design and construction side of things.
Okay.
So I don't anticipate that they would be directly involved in that, as I kind of understand it today.
Okay, I was just curious. Okay, anybody else? Hearing none, we don't need we just need a regular motion, right? We have the motion. We don't need a roll call. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thanks for the amendment, Brad. That clears it up. And that motion carries. So that will take us to the Executive Director report.
Bill Walker, I have one item. Take a few minutes. We are dipping our toes into the voluntary carbon credit market, and I need to explain or at least remind everybody what that market is, talk about how we got introduced to it, what we're doing, and why we think it's worth it. Carbon credits are payments for either removing carbon from the air or not releasing it in the first place, the latter being so-called avoided emissions. Like any environmental trading market, the point of a carbon market is that it's cheaper and easier for some organizations to address carbon than for others, and having a credit market lets money flow to reward the low-cost provider, which yields an overall better environmental benefit. You can, of course, have regulatory-driven environmental markets, including carbon markets, but we're talking about a voluntary market here today. Those are driven by organizations who, for whatever reasons of their own, want to reduce carbon but find it too expensive or difficult to do so themselves. As with any market, there is always a concern with shenanigans, so good markets have got procedures that ensure people know what bought and sold and verifying it's real, and we'll come back to that later. So we were approached by a Boulder, Colorado company called Verity. They are primarily a water monitoring and water program financing company, and one of their specialties is carbon reductions related to watershed activities, which is how they found us. They act essentially like a broker in the voluntary market. They look for organizations that can do cost-effective carbon removal or avoided emissions, and then they help them create certified credits and get them into the market. So they offered and are helping us with credits for the carbon that we did not release and will continue to not release when we chose to do Yahara Wind's adaptive management instead of building very energy-intensive tertiary treatment for phosphorus. So it is an avoided emissions scenario that we're talking about. We were, and especially I was, skeptical about this, the validity of the offer and sort of the value it provide us. I looked back, we've actually been researching this since fall of 2023. And we did a bunch of digging, including into who Verity is, how this market works, why our credits are valuable to people, and the legal and contract issues involved. And Stafford has been very helpful. You've heard Vanessa mention this in her work updates a couple times. So we have gotten to the point where we're poised to assign an agreement with Verity to sell credits, as I said, related to avoided emissions. The service they provide is to handle the credit calculation, documentation of those credits, submitting them to the registry, and then managing the subsequent audit and review processes. That's the shenanigan avoiding part of the market. And they will also find buyers for those credits. So the deal that we have arrived at with Stafford's help would give us a minimum of approximately $360,000 over the period up through 2036. So depending on how the market plays out, it could be higher later, but that's what we're certain to get. And it's structured so that the credits are recognizing the work, the non-emissions dating back to the start of WINS in 2017, and then, as I said, going up through 2036. So we see three benefits from this, and obviously the first one is additional revenue, which is nice. And we're pleased to be able to diversify our revenue sources somewhat. That's the headline benefit. We've also benefited, and this is one of the reasons we're willing to put energy into this, into learning how these credit markets work, learning how to analyze these issues, which may come in handy if we end up in a situation where we're doing other credits for, say, biogas production. Now, whether we take that path depends on the heat and power facility plan, which is underway, so I'm not promising that, but it felt like it was useful to us internally to get some experience in these areas. And then finally, there's been some benefit in helping Verity and the market itself, helping Verity develop its portfolio and strengthen that market. Again, the point of these markets is to incentivize more reductions going forward, and we're playing some small part in helping that structure grow. So I'm glad to try to answer some questions. If you get technical, I'm going to bring Ben Narad and Marty up here for additional detail. But it's just an FYI update. Any questions? Otherwise, we can go on.
Okay, anybody have any questions? I've got one. Or kind of, do you think we would ever need to have those credits for ourselves at some point rather than selling them? You know, I'm thinking to Sun Prairie just announced that they are basically carbon neutral. I don't know if that involved any carbon credit sales or not, but I'm just wondering, does this, you know, selling our credits, that means we can't use them later for our own purposes?
Let me take a stab at that, and the gentlemen who are watching me right now can come up if I get this wrong. The point of a credit ultimately is to sell it, because sort of my description of the market is you want to get money for the reductions you're able to do. for us, we are not subject to the kind of regulation that would make those credits more valuable in some other situation. This is essentially the best deal that's available to us. And in fact, we weren't even aware the deal was possible until security showed up. So part of our analysis has been to confirm that there's really no risk of selling these into this market as opposed to trying to find some other one because there isn't really available to us.
Okay, Greg, and then, Ken?
Okay, I just wanna, I'm riding the skeptical train here, Bill, so I wanna make sure I understand this. We are going to be paid not for actual reduction, but for essentially an opportunity cost that we avoided. Am I understanding that correctly? And there's an actual market for this.
There's an actual market for this, and you're identifying the skepticism that I started with at the beginning. And the reason I introduced the idea of shenanigans is obviously you're all aware there have been situations in the world where what appear to have been actions to reduce carbon emissions or to sequester were in fact not. And there can be deception and greenwashing in this market generally. This one, from all of our research, is not subject to that. There's a great deal of clarity and documentation about what is actually happening. And it is in fact valuable to the buyers in this market to be aware and have confirmed that we are not emitting things that we could have done. It's the nature of the market. And the last point I made, I think, is relevant here to giving at least me a little confidence. There is a broad effort to build a market. So even if a particular situation like us may seem a little odd, the overall goal is to have a functioning market that can make it easy for organizations to contribute to carbon reductions and avoided emissions. And that's what we're supporting here.
Commissioner Clark, Bill, average reimbursement per credit?
I don't have a per credit feature, or figure, but I believe if you average it across the life of the contract, it's $40,000 per year. Is that correct? 36. We're waiting for a microphone to get put into action here.
Hello, Ben, you're District Budget Officer. So the credits are priced under our contract at $5 per ton of CO2, essentially, and we anticipate, as Bill said, a total of about $360,000 over the next 11 years, and so that's about $30,000 roughly per year. So in the grand scheme of things, from a overall district revenue perspective, it's not significant, but it's a small way to diversify our revenues.
Thank you.
Okay. Dan and then Beth.
Thank you. Commissioner Bookland. This sounds almost too good to be true, so I'm skeptical too. And I'm wondering what, if any, is the cost to us to get into this, and then not only cost paying for any of this, but cost in staff time to manage something like this. So, I'm trying to weigh, what the benefit would be to the district besides. It just seems too good to be true to be getting these $360,000 for nothing. And then it's not really a question, but it's kind of a comment, and that is, given what's going on right now in Washington, D.C., I just heard on the news this morning that there's a big cut in regulations in the EPA. We don't know whether this carbon trade-off is going to even be viable or valuable, in the coming years. So it's just a comment. We don't know if this is going to be sustainable, this carbon trading benefit kind of thing. So I'm just wondering if it's really worth it to get into this. And we don't maybe have the answer right now, but comment.
Commissioner Paul, two things. One, is there a way of dipping your toe in versus jumping in all the way? I mean, it's for 12 years, like a long time, because maybe in 4 years, all of a sudden the credit is worth double and we got stuck at a lower rate. That's number one. Number two, this is a weird environmental thought I had. So we're allowing other companies to be bad to the environment by selling them our credits, correct? I mean, that's what we're doing. Since we're better than good, they're not good, they can keep being bad because we're really good. This doesn't seem, I know it's $40,000 a year, that's a lot of money, but it just, I don't know, wrong. If the people are if I understand, if the company can't get better because of contracts and stuff that they can't get better for 4 or 5 years, that makes sense. But if this is a company that's doing nothing and just keeps pumping out CO2, it just feels like we're doing something wrong. Just my 2 cents.
So this is where I'm going to step in and say this was an executive director update, and if you guys would like to have some further discussion about this and maybe even discuss, our decision points, I would ask for you to think about making this an official topic in the future.
Yeah, as we're getting into more than questions, we're getting into discussion, so I think we should have it as a agenda topic. Did you have a time frame that you were looking for execution?
We can take the time to have an agenda item needed.
Okay. Anything else in the executive director update, Bill? Or Eric?
Nope, we're going to turn it over to Theron here.
Okay, Theron, Nine Springs Valley Interceptor.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Theron Jacobson, project engineer with the district. I'm here to present the final presentation on the Nine Springs Valley Interceptor, the Mineral Point Extension, the pipe investigation update. I'm hitting it twice. Like you get to drive. The location of the repairs hasn't changed, of course. It's along 18151 between Fitch Verona and Fitch Verona Road and the East Verona Avenue interchange between Fitchburg and Verona. The topics I'm going to go over today is the work completed. I have some short videos and some photos of the pre-repair and post-repair, and then the next steps we need to do, and I can take any questions, of course. And to kind of every other presentation I've given is, all right, what's next? What's the new problem you found? I'm going to bring the anticipation right up front here. The repair work that we conducted is done. So we found better information, new information, more upfront info that I will present here. And we did take a different approach on the repair, but we're confident that we succeeded in our goal. Next slide, Amanda. So the work that we did complete, we had to do some intense cleaning. So if you recall, this pipe has sags in it. It's not from a higher ground to a lower ground. There's sags in it that hold water, hold debris, and that created many challenges that we had to deal with during this repair. So we had to do intense cleaning daily. That also included dewatering in the pipe. I'll say that again, in the pipe at the locations of the repair. And some of the photos will explain that. What we ended up doing was grouting at multiple joints. 11 in total were repaired, and there were other spots that we hit along the way that weren't as significant. So we used 2 different types of grout, a polyacrylamide, which is more of a gel-based. You can see we used over 1,200 gallons of that, and then 62 is a polyurethane, which is more of an expandable foam, like industrial grade, of course, but kind of like the great stuff you could buy at a home improvement store. what we ended up doing was being able to reduce, parentheses, stop the infiltration of groundwater and soil. And if you recall, soil was migrating into this because of the fine material that this pipe is laid on. There's no bedding stone. And the groundwater is very high here. We're right next to Goose Lake, so the infiltration was significant. Like I said, we were able to stabilize the soil, and stabilizing the foundation of the pipe, and reducing the topsoil. And we've removed the bypass system, so we can all sleep better at night. Next slide, Amanda. So these are two short videos. One on the left's about 30 seconds. One on the right's less than that. I'm not going to talk during these videos. I want everyone just to kind of see and listen to this is one of the joints that are about 300 feet up from the most downstream section. So hence the water and the material coming in. And that's after we've put in some of that polyurethane grout too. So it's slowed down some already. So that joint on the right, those are the same joints. On the one on the left, you're looking at more of the 3 o'clock pan. At the bottom there, you're probably at the 5, 6 o'clock window, and that's after we've done a significant amount of grouting, and basically we've moved the infiltration to the bottom of the pipe. So that was ultimately sealed up. This was just an intermediate video. That gave a really good visual of the material that's been migrating into this pipe over the years once this joint is, ultimately allowed that to happen. Next slide, Amanda. The next slides are a series of photos. Some of the quality is better than others. The one on the left, these are at the same joint again. So you can see the one on the left is, as work is progressing, that tube at the bottom left of that photo, and that's actually an extension we had to put onto the vac truck of about 150, 200 feet, just to get down there and use a vac truck to help clean the sag out, to get the material out, to visually see the whole circumference of the pipe. That middle photo is just a snapshot of the video you just saw, and then the one on the right is the offset joint that was roughly mid-pipe at that same location, hence why there was so much I&I material moving in from the baseline of the pipe, because with this pipe sagging, it's basically pinched at the top and opened up at the bottom to allow that water to come in and that material to come in much more easily. Next slide, Amanda. So this is after the repair is done. Hence, yes, there's still water in the pipe, but remember, this is in a sag, so we were never able to get all the water out. But the significance here is no water rushing in from either side. There's no water boiling in from the bottom. There's no movement of water. And that pump is not active right now, even though it looks like the hose is compressed. It's just the backwater from the dam that we had to put inside the pipe to isolate each end from the sag here so we could dewater this. Next slide, Amanda. So this is the other offset joint, which is just adjacent to the joint we were just repairing. This is the one we actually put the short liner on back in September. So what we ended up finding here was the short liner worked just with the offset of the joint at the bottom, There was some irregularity at that, and then there was some material too that we lined over, but we were able to clean that completely out and grout below it and around it between the liner and the pipe to seal this up completely. The top, sides, and everything else looked really good. It was just that bottom that we had to seal up a little bit more. And the only way we were able to know that is with entry and having eyes on it down there. No camera or whatever picked that up because we were underwater when we did this repair. So hence here you can see the photo on the left was while we were still doing work. See, we have the sandbag dam there. What that was for was this pipe is laid very flat the rest of the way to the next downstream manhole, so any water rise at that bottom end came back on us. We had to isolate this work zone, pump the water from the middle of the pipe over the sandbags down to the end. There was another pump there taking it back to the bypass system so we could dry up the work zone as much as possible. So you can see the pipes or the pumps are fully submerged almost on the left photo. Not see the bottom of the pipe whatsoever. Photo on the right, you can see the bottom of the pipe now, and you can see it, there's probably a couple inches of water at the base right there. So a significant water reduction right there at the opposite end of the pipe. Next slide, Amanda. So this is after the repair is completely done at that same joint. The photo is just taken back a little ways. You might wonder what the disturbance in the photo in the background is. Instead of deploying sandbags or a plug, we ended up going and getting a bunch of tire tubes and putting them in the pipe. So thinking kind of outside the box there, they're lighter. And all we had to do was isolate the water zone from the downstream end of the work zone. So that was creative thinking there. And it worked too, because actually it made the air quality better down there too, because we were able to move air much freely instead of having a plug in there. But you can see at the bottom of the liner there, kind of that lighter colored, that's that polyurethane out in there. So we sealed everything up, we cleaned that out. Doesn't look the prettiest, but it's functionable and stable, which is key. And hence you can see there's little to no water at the bottom there, so which is a success. Next slide, Amanda. So these are just two other locations along the pipe. This is actually in the area where we did the initial emergency repair that occurred in early August. The only time this ever had no water in it is now, during this photo. Every other time we had at least 18 inches of water in here because this pipe was significantly sagged back towards this way. So the only way of getting water out was by pumping it and then eliminating the infiltration sources along this stretch of pipe. So this would take on the first 160 feet roughly of any infiltration that occurred. It would come back on us. So, and so you can see the bottom of the pipe there. I know that photo is a little cloudy from the cameraing that was done after all the work. Some of the photos were taken with contractors' phones. Some are with the CCTV camera from the contractor's truck. Next slide, Amanda. So if you recall back in December, the approach was to pier in place pipeline this. So the goal always was to stabilize this pipe to buy us time until it's replaced as part of the Nine Springs Valley Phase 2 project. So ultimately, as part of the grouting process, we ended up doing entry, so we were able to get upfront eyes on the pipe, get more information, get a visual look at how this pipe is actually acting down there, what the offset joints are truly doing, what the root causes of the issues are. So ultimately, as grouting proceeded, we were able to stop the infiltration of the groundwater and the soil, which is the root causes of the pipe deficiencies here. There's some constructability issues, but we can't deal with any of that now. That's from the late 60s. What we can control now is what we can control, and that's the flow of groundwater and soil, which we've done. So we've addressed the worst areas, and moving forward, I think, is the best approach here with what we've been able to complete. Next slide. So next steps, we've remove the bypass system. There's still plenty of equipment out there, of course, but we need to restore the site, finalize the costs with the contractor, and then ultimately replace the pipe as part of another CIP project that's named up there that's under design currently and scheduled for construction in 2026. So at this time, I will gladly take any questions.
Okay, any questions? Greg, I was wondering.
Sure, yeah. So I'm just thinking ahead, Aaron. So this is really interesting work, by the way. Nice job. Thinking ahead to your next project, right, which is replacement of this thing. The dewatering that is required to allow you to install something. Yeah, I mean, that's gonna have to be given a lot of thought as to how you're gonna do this, and even what type of pipe you want in this particular. So I'm just interested in anything you have to say about the next part too. And again, nice job for everybody involved on this.
I appreciate the confidence and the thankfulness of the work that we were done out here. I appreciate that publicly. It goes a long way with me. Regarding the next project, that is assigned to a different project engineer, but I'm gonna weigh my thoughts, and I've given him some tips on what should be done out there. We did learn a lot during, the reason why we were able to find out what these issues were is us connecting to the pipe as part of the pumping station 17 Force Main Relief Phase 2 project that I've been overseeing. The different types of dewatering that is going to have to be done out there, most likely it's going to have to be a point system is what it's going to end up being, which we deployed on the connection of the pipe that we originally did in February of 2024. And also when we did the original pipe repair in August, we used a point system there. The material that's out here is right at that gradation limits, and that's just the size of the particles is near what a fine screen is. I know I'm going to get into the details here, but if I'm getting too detailed, just cut me off. Your fine screens can go down to 0.01 inches. That's roughly what this fine sand is. It's not a granular sand like a beach sand you would see. Much smaller particle than that, which hence is why it's able to move more freely with the water. And it's correct, President Hubble, it's just on this larger size of a silt clay particle. And when we had the point system out there, we were moving a little bit of material, but not a lot, because we were pumping into the silt bags, of course. So, but when we did have, call them trash pumps, but they're basically pumps that you put into your trench that you put into a sump, we had to use those when we were doing that original repair. And the 4 days that we did have to use those, we filled a 10 by 10 bag 3 feet high. So that was with 3 pumps going. We had to do it. The point system that we deployed when we did that repair, we isolated the zone as small as we could because we didn't want to create another problem. We didn't want that original offset to continually walking down the line. So your thoughts are already being thought of and discussed, and as part of the current project that's being designed, MSA, the engineer that's on board, they'll engage with contractors, and I'll give them my thoughts, and I've given them some of the contacts that I got that helped us work on their repairs and such for us. So it needs to be thought of course, and the ability to adapt out in the field as conditions change. Because the groundwater it's higher out there now than when the original work was being done in February of 2024. But remember, we got a lot of rain in the spring of 2024. So, I mean, the groundwater here does fluctuate. So, but yes, pipe materials, bedding, foundation, that's going to be a different approach, along this pipe. The constructability will be different, just the ability to adapt. Hopefully I answered your question. All right, yep, no problem.
Okay, Patrick.
Thank you, Commissioner Lytle.
I realize that every one of these repair projects is unique and has its own set of circumstances, but I do think there's an opportunity here for us to compare what a preventive repair would have cost versus all the bypass pumping and having to actually go into the pipe and do all that work the way we were forced to. As we're telling the story and making the case for continuing our kind of maintenance program and asset management, I think data from this project is just one more example that we can take to stakeholders here and say, you know, no one's 100% perfect predicting the future, but you know, more preventive work we do, the less we should have to do.
Anyone else? Good work, gentlemen. Thank your team. Good thinking on using tire.
And I just, if I could say one more thing, I do publicly want to thank everyone that helped me along the way on this. That includes the commission, staff, the contractors that were out there, Minger Construction Companies, Visu Sewer, Rain for Rent. I think it is acknowledged to help, you know, to give them acknowledgement here. From what I had heard, this is probably one of the worst repairs anyone's ever worked on and this is what they do every day. So that goes a long way that we were able to get to the point of where we're at today. So I do want to thank them.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing what the final costs were. The pumping was very expensive itself. Okay. Regulatory and legal, Paul?
Thank you, Paul Kent. We filed our brief in the Badger Mill Creek matter last Friday. That is a public document. If anybody's interested in seeing it, we can make that available. The City of Verona's brief, or reply brief, is due on the 28th. And then the court will decide whether to have oral argument or just issue a decision, which, again, we're anticipating maybe this summer sometime. So that is proceeding. Couple of things on the regulatory review. As expected, after the governor put the PFAS initiative in his budget, Senator Winberger reintroduced the legislation that the Republicans were offering last session. That was vetoed by the governor. So we don't know yet what the ultimate outcome will be. We're certainly hoping that somehow they'll find a way to get the municipal money in, but we'll just have to see how that plays out. There was a DNR did hold a public hearing on the scope statement for groundwater standards based on PFAS back in March, on March 6th, and it's the kickoff essentially of the rule process, which can go a couple of years. So we'll see where that ends up, but that process has begun again. And the department has also kind of reaffirmed its interim strategy on biosolids, and so that's right now it's this tiered system to biosolids. There are a number of federal initiatives out there, and many of them have been given extensions. There's a rule on PFAS method updates that have been extended into the end of March. There's a federal biosolids risk assessment. Written comments have been extended to the middle of April, and the human health criteria has also been extended to April. I think just to respond briefly to Commissioner Bookland's comment, I think there clearly is a very different approach to these regulations with this administration. I think things like these proposals that are open for comment and haven't been decided are the things that are the most vulnerable or the easiest to have indefinitely delayed or postponed. Certainly, there will be an effort to roll back some other things, but a lot of those are codified in the Code of Federal Regulations, at least in theory, would require that process to go through. And so it will be some time before we would see those kinds of but I think some of these new initiatives, my guess is we're not going to see a lot of movement. But that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Anybody have any questions? Nope, seeing none, we'll move on. Future meeting schedule. So our next meeting is the 27th, and as far as we know, only one person will be absent during that kind of vacation week for schools, and that's Ezra. So we have some things we have to tend to. And then also wanted to note that the first personnel subcommittee meeting is on Friday at 1 o'clock, and that's virtual. And so far, the first scheduled finance committee meetings on April 28th. That's a Monday, 2:30, right? So, good. Thanks for moving on those things, you gentlemen. Let's see. Any future agenda topics? We talked about putting on that carbon credit deal. Anybody have anything else? None. Any other business? And do we have a motion to adjourn?
Commissioner Clark, motion to adjourn.
Motion by Commissioner Clark, second by
Commissioner Freeze.
Second by Commissioner Freeze to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. See you in a couple weeks.